Okay, so in this training, we're going to talk about Google Drive and Google Calendar, a couple of Google tools that you are commonly going to use in the company. It's not uncommon for you to use Google Calendar where you're going to collaborate on events with other people. You'll see here, for example, I have various meetings that come in through my scheduling tool. If you're client facing, you'll be setting up a scheduling tool. But if not, you still get assigned a company account where you have a Google Calendar. And generally speaking, sometimes you may end up booking meetings with other team members for training purposes or various reasons. So, one thing you can do with Google Calendar is you can actually combine calendars. If you have a personal calendar, maybe you want to combine in conjunction with your work calendar, so you can see your personal calendar in conjunction with the work calendar. And you'll see I engage in a practice myself. I don't require this, but I do highly recommend that you do what's called time blocking, where you have events where you have certain time blocks where you might block time where people could schedule meetings with you if you use a meeting scheduler. And you block time for checking your emails and updating your note-taking system or the CRM for action items. And you do schedule time for deep work. I schedule time for deep work. This is work that requires focused attention for long periods of time. And it's important to be working this block. I happen to not have meetings here, so I am working on ClickUp tasks and projects, this training being one of them. And then I have my personal tasks from my personal calendar here that kind of line up with my work schedule. So, this takes time to do. I don't require it, but I do recommend it that you do this in your own time. This is not something I would pay you on the clock to do, or that I would want you to do while I pay you. This is just something I recommend. Now, when you schedule meetings, let's say with a team member, it's important that the meeting itself, you might click the edit button, has some components to it here. So you'll see this is actually a Zoom meeting that was scheduled through Zoom. So the Zoom link populates automatically here. There's usually a event name, a purpose of the call, some Zoom information there, and then like why the meeting is happening. So if this stuff isn't present, it's good to kind of maybe update it, especially if it's client facing. Ensure that anybody coming to the meeting is added as a guest. And then you usually have some notifications. I like to have 10-minute, 30-minute notifications. Clear name of the meeting, who's meeting with who. Usually there's a purpose here as well. Like this should have been team member interview. Usually I like to put that in there. Okay. So basically understand that when you schedule meetings with people, whether it's team members or clients, the details of the event is a form of communication. So be professional. If there's any relevant information, make sure you attach it using the attachment button or link it by typing in the URL, inserting the link and explaining the attachment and a link. Don't just put attachments and links like whether it's an email or a comment or a calendar event and not explain them or leave it blank. Always explain your attachments and links. You'll say you'll see that there's an attachment here in the calendar event for the document you need to reference, right? Or you'll see that there is a link here for the Zoom meeting so you can easily join. It even has that description here automatically for us. But if not, you need to add that for links, okay? So that is basically what you want to keep in mind with Google Calendar. It is a form of communication when you're booking meetings with other teammates, or in general, updating the details of a meeting. So in Google Drive is a form of communication because we share files with one another and we actually do collaborative documents, which is a form of communication. And so sometimes there's actually collaborative documents where the client is one of the collaborators on the document. So I'll give you an example of this. So like this client here, we created a document for their ads. Here's like an ad mockup. Okay. Now with an ad mockup, you're going to see, or any of these collaborative documents, you're going to see with if you click the share button, it actually shows who's on the document. Generally speaking, if somebody's outside of the organization, Our policy is to keep them as a commenter, okay? Only people within the organization generally have editor access if approved. Generally, even people within the organization, we usually have as commenter, as you're going to find out when I talk more about standard operating procedure documents. But with some documents like this, generally, like anyone in Acceleration Enterprises might have editor access. However, even clients, even if it's a client document that we create for them, is a commenter only because of the client's propensity to click into documents and type things in and make adjustments that are not needed, right? Now, I'll give you another example of, a client document where there's more commenting, okay? So, for example, here's a mock-up. And what you see here is when a comment happens in a creative document, there might, right now the user's deleted, but you'll see there's like a question mark, and maybe they're just asking, what is that? Okay. They may have this one has a lot more. We can see here we actually had an editor coming in here and making recommendations, and there may be actual recommendations that need to be updated, right? And so at editor access, we can actually come in here and just like approve these. And you'll also see that from the client. So when you're working on collaborative documents, or you see a document, whether it's a standard operating procedure internally, client mockups, any collaborative Google document, we use a lot of collaborative Google documents, like standard operating procedures is another example, because you'll read a lot of standard operating procedures where I give you instructions with a Google document. Be very intentional about your commenting, about clicking into the document and typing in a recommended change or a comment, because every time you do that, it sends an email to everybody that's involved in the document. Automatically, they get a notification. Do not click into documents, okay, and then make a comment accidentally, okay, because what's going to happen is you're going to get tons of notifications. Everyone's going to get tons of notifications about accidental, like if you accidentally clicked in here and just made a typo, if you just clicked in here and you accidentally just typed the space button or something, well, that's just sent an email to everybody. All right. So you don't want to do that. Be very intentional when you're working on collaborative documents, knowing that the client might see something. If it's a mock-up or if it's a standard operating procedure, the team might also see it. Okay, so you have to be very aware of commenting in standard documents, standard operating procedure documents, and then also client mock-ups. Like here's a standard operating procedure. See here, this person put task, and this is just an example. This person shouldn't have done this because it's not an actual edit or recommendation to the document. It just says task, where all SOPs just start out with standard operating procedure. Now, if there was a part of the standard operating procedure she was performing and then something changed in here, we might make a comment and say, change this to this because it doesn't work or something like that, and make a recommendation. That's important. But doing this sends an email to everybody involved, and it just fills up the email more. And it's just, maybe she accidentally clicked in here and then was meaning to type task somewhere else, right? So I'll just remove that. So you want to be careful about where you're typing. If you have a standard operating procedure up in one screen and maybe click up in another screen or something, make sure you know where you're typing and what you're typing out. All right, because entering in updates to a collaborative document sends an email notification to everybody. All right. And we don't want to get those email notifications unless it's actually relevant. This includes with clients and mockups. If you're accidentally putting typos into a client mockup, the client's receiving emails of your typos. So be careful. All right. Be intentional. And that pretty much covers communication standards with Google Calendar and Google Drive. There's a basic Google Drive training to take following this policy training. And I hope that's helpful. Thank you.